Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. We've got a dwindling representation, but I think we've got all the important people in the room, which is great. Thank you very much. And you're welcome to the penultimate session for this afternoon. We have Associate Professor Richard Jackson, who will be giving his keynote address to close out the conference, and no better, more fitting individual to do that. But just beforehand, I think you may recall at the beginning of the conference that I shared with you that in 2019, when there was a proposal that was brought to the Teaching and Learning and Quality Director here at the University of Worcester to develop a research group, both internally and externally. They asked for a plan of activities. So there were two major objectives that were part of the plan, longer term objectives. And the first one, as you're participating in that right now, and that was the realization of an international conference. The second one was the development of a journal. So we've taught long and hard in relation to this, and primarily with discussions with Professor Mustafa Abi at the University of Ibn Zur and the really accomplished Dr. Betsy Dalton, who has one of the highest rated journals in relation to UDL, in terms of technologies. It really is. If you kind of Google Betsy, she's up there in terms of her ratings as a published author. And I think that's an area that Betsy has increasingly become interested in. So we're interested in, I suppose, taking the concept of universal design and universal design for learning and providing that strong research base. I think I've shared this with a couple of people who've been at the conference already, that I think there were something in the region of 5 abstracts that look at systematic reviews of the literature. And systematic reviews of the literature generally start at the beginning of a research journey. So I think we're in an exciting space for universal design and universal design for learning in terms of strengthening that research base. So if I move along in relation to that, why universal design and universal design for learning? And it's interesting that our colleagues from UCD, I think who've had to take off, had alluded to universal design when they're looking at a whole campus approach. And we can, I think, move things even further. You can move things out of the campus. You can move to a whole city approach in terms of a universal design for living, as a colleague of mine put it at one stage, thinking about design-based principles more widely. So what do they look like in terms of the spaces? Hopefully some of you will recognize this picture here, which is the pedestrian crossing by Pitchcroft. And that pedestrian crossing at Pitchcroft has many, many features in terms of really well thought through design-based processes. So it's thinking about social design, and it's also thinking about another picture that I have here on the upper right-hand side of the slides is a technological design. And we were in a session earlier on in 007, engaging with colleagues from that Kevin hosted from Brazil, who were discussing a Google document. There were closed captions running on the base of that document. And in real time, we had a colleague join us from the Women's University in India to discuss their practices. Really thinking about the potentials for technological developments, and I suppose the potentials for artificial intelligence in relation to that as well. So this is called the power of potential. So it's a good time, I think, to draw those strands together. and in relation to how design-based features have implications for architecture. Because thinking back to some of the original, and maybe before I go on to the next slide that relates to this one here, I'm just going to show you a little bit of a picture of a tiered lecture theatre here at the University of Worcester, and it has a chunk taken out of the left front row. And there's a little bit of a story behind this one, and it was a wheelchair user who was empowered within her sessions to have a discussion with estates and the registrar here at the university, because previously when she had to wheel her wheelchair into the learning space, she had to wheel it here, which is right beside the bins. And it was just an awful reflection on if that's about learning and teaching and inclusivity. And we pride ourselves on inclusion within this university. So things have to change in terms of agency. So it's that agency, social agency around architectural learning spaces, technological learning spaces, curricular learning spaces, social learning spaces, and living spaces, and how they interface between one another. And I think there's real scope for us to have an interdisciplinary approach in relation to that. Why not have architects speaking to historians? And why not be inspired by some of the original work of Ron Mace, who conceptualized the notion of universal design? So maybe going back to some of those principles and thinking about how they can interface with universal design for learning as well. So opening the journal out to that interdisciplinary approach. So how will we make that happen? And what I'd like to do is to pass over to my friend and colleague, Professor Mustafa Abi, to kind of give us some insights in relation to how this will be realized. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sean. Yeah, just quickly, this is a platform provided by the Ministry of Higher Education in Morocco to host journals. Can I use that? This is just a screenshot of the web page of the platform. Sure. This is just a screen. This is just a screenshot of the platform. But what does the platform provide is it offers Moroccan and international researchers digital publishing service for open access for their research. So and it's totally it's totally supportive. And one of the conditions for hosting the journal on the platform is that it should be an open access, and there should be no cost for the reader and for the authors as well, at no cost. Yeah. This is just again a screenshot of one of the journals hosted at the platform, just to give you an idea what does it provide. Because in the first place, it's multilingual. You can choose either your interface in English. This is in English, but most journals there hosted are in French. Yeah, in French. The interface is, so you can choose the interface. You can choose English, French, or Arabic. Yeah. So its development, what services does it provide? It provides development and hosting of journals and indexing of existing electronic journals as well. Some of the key features: it enables document dissemination and archiving, access to abstract full text, both in PDF format and HTML, and advanced search. And we can, each article can be assigned for free. Although, yeah, that's for free as well. That's And this is again a screenshot of the platform. So it offers a range of tools for editors, including submission management, distribution of setting, and users roles. It can provide as well some feedback on statistics of viewing and readership and so on. So this is, in a way, it's a journal management system, as all journals. The difference is that it's provided by the ministry. They provide all the support, even the training for editors on how to use it. And that's a starting point for us. Thank you.
Let me see if I can do this. So to recap, INCLUDE, the INCLUDE Collaboratory, which is a volunteer professional organization, and ICEQ, which is an educational group that's been hosting this conference for 7 years now, right? 7 different years. Over the years we've grown. Right? INCLUDE's about 5 years old. And so now we're at the point where, we're ready to launch this journal. We have not had an edition yet, but it's our goal to, by the end of the year, have the first issue out. And is it going to be in print at all? It's all going to be online, totally online and totally free. So, but we do have a logo. There it is. That's the logo that was developed, and it's wonderful to have the support of the Ministry of Education that they've offered to help for us to be able to use that platform. So that's a successful publication platform that Mustafa just introduced, and we are going to be able to use that, which is fantastic because you don't always have those resources that are readily available. So what are we thinking we're going to do? Mustafa, Sean, and myself, we're the editors, but we're hoping that our vision is to have 2 issues per year. One issue being more of an open call, and then the other one we expect will be more of a special edition, and those special editions could be on particular issues or emerging topics and things like that. So we have the lead editors, but then we are looking for associate editors. So if you've always wanted, if you lie awake at night and say, I wish that I could be involved as an editor with a journal that works in universal design for learning, inclusive education, let us know, because we would love to, have you on board. We're developing the materials now. Over the summer, you'll all be on vacation. We're going to be working, and we're developing the materials now so that you can submit your information to us, so that we could consider you potentially as an associate editor. We're hoping to have representation around the world in various areas, from the global south, absolutely, but from all over, because we want it to be truly international. And then we will also be looking for guest editors. So if you have a particular idea that you are really very, very interested in having it be out there in the world, then a little later on, we'll take those ideas. But right now, we just want to move forward and get our publication out. So what do we expect to include in this journal? We absolutely want to focus on it being a forum to share original research on inclusion, universal design, and universal design for learning, because we want to highlight that. So if you are doing research, or if others are, we are interested. we also are going to have a section on implementation and practice. So you've probably seen professional journals that have, a number of different areas. We'll have a research section. We'll have some representation from implementation and practice. And as we evolve, we expect that we would like to host perhaps a book review that is published there to share information about that, and also an opinion piece, some voices from the field. So this is what we expect that our journal will contain. And we will be following the ethics guidance. These are two guidelines that we will be following. I believe that this is the ethics information that comes from the Ministry of Education and the platform. So we will be following that. And it's going to be a peer-reviewed, double-blind process. No cost to the readers no cost to the writers for submission, no cost to the readers to get it, and it will be housed in the directory of open access journals, and the content will not be available just in one big PDF. It's going to be available per article, so you'll be able to get the entire thing or per article. And the other thing I wanted to say is that INCLUDE, we would love to be sure that we have you on the INCLUDE. Is everybody here going to be on the INCLUDE list? We're going to ask you if you would like to join the INCLUDE email list if you're not on it already, and then we'll be able to push out information about this. So that's the advantage. So if you choose to become part of the INCLUDE Collaboratory and join our network, then you'll get all the information as we send out communications directly to your email as to when the journal will be coming and the progress with it and different things like that. So now we have an opportunity for questions, discussion, and Sean wanted to leave plenty of time for this. No, not too much time? Okay. Yes. Does anyone have any questions? What do you think? Do you think this is a good thing to happen? Good idea? Okay.
I just wanted to know that whatever has been presented here, will you be selecting some papers from there? Then we submit our full papers to be published there? And also one small question, will this be indexed in the Scopus also eventually?
Yeah, we will be working towards indexing in Scopus. But yes, I believe, we're working on this now, that the three of us are talking about this, but I expect what we'll be doing is sending out an invitation to individuals that, to everyone that's here with the criteria for submission, right? And then you'll be invited to, to submit a letter of interest and abstract, and then we'll be able to select from there. Yes.
Kate had a question, and I've got a question of the audience. Who owns this key? Just while we're kind of bringing it over. Anybody from accommodation who's been here? It's 5A, 0015A. So on the last slide, there was a link. I'm not really sure. Well, the registration, that'll be the director of, yeah, so it's not actually registered. The journal isn't registered yet. And the reason that it's not quite registered yet, and it won't appear on this, is that according to the guidelines that we've received from the Ministry of Education in Morocco, a first iteration of the journal has to be provided before it can be actually registered here. So we won't be able to find it on this yet. I would say that colleagues are invited from this conference to submit papers that would constitute amongst our first journal. So we're working from, it's a call out to you in terms of research, opinion pieces, insights, and there were some really interesting presentations this morning, you know, drawing on research, drawing on opinion pieces, drawing on experience from the field, etc. So I think we have lots of material to populate our first journal. You know, certainly looking at the richness of the program over the past few days, there's just so much potential, I think, in terms of drawing the learning together from the past few days. So any other questions we have? Yeah, you know how to get, you know who we are, I think, at this stage. If you don't, I don't know where you've been for the last 3 days. Okay, so I think without further ado, I think we're just 4 minutes early, I think, for our to the next phase, and I'm going to pass over to my colleague, the esteemed Betsy Dalton, to take us into that next phase. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I was so honored when Sean asked me if I would do the introduction for Richard. Richard Jackson, you can see here, Uncovering Potential the UDL Way. This is what he's going to be sharing his story, the path that he's been on for his entire professional life. And a lot of that life has been with CAST and UDL, but it's also been involved with technology, assistive technology. And that's actually how Richard and I met, was at a conference where we were giving a presentation in the same room, and we were both presenting on assistive technology. We share that that background with technology for individuals with differing needs and abilities, and using technology to break down barriers, to break down the barriers. And so I loved what Richard presented, and I guess he liked mine enough, so we stayed in touch. And then I was working at Rhode Island College, and I invited Richard to come and give a presentation on assistive technology and UDL, I think early on. And Richard is has been a senior researcher with CAST for many, many years, and he's at the culmination of his career now. He's moving on to be, as I am, in the retired sector, working on whatever he wants to work on now. So we're so happy for him. But I just want to say that later on, after I finished my PhD, Richard wrote this wonderful grant to set up Universal Design for Learning leadership fellowships as a collaboration between CAST and Boston College. And I happened to be on an email list, and I saw the post come up, and I had just, I think I was six months out of having my PhD, which I got at a very mature age. And I wrote to him and I said, "Oh, Richard, this looks interesting. I'm interested in applying." He said, "Yes, do that." So I came on board as one of the first fellows with my colleague Elizabeth Hartman, leadership fellows in Universal Design for Learning. And Richard was my mentor, as was Tracy from from CAST as well. And it changed my life. It totally changed my life, being embedded with in Boston College and CAST. And I guess I encourage you to take the opportunities that are presented and don't be afraid, because you never know where they're going to lead. And it led me to have a deep friendship and collegial relationship with Richard Jackson. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jackson, and he's going to share his wonderful experience with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Betsy. I'm so pleased to be here. This is a kind of a culmination of dreams over the last 15 or so years about how we might scale up this notion of leadership. UDL was something that started in the 80s at CAST, but it really wasn't until the 97 special ed law amendments in the US, where Congress mandated that all students with disabilities have to have access to the general education curriculum. And it seemed to people in Washington and in our Congress and in our administration at the time, like Judy Heumann, who's been identified, and Tom Hare as well, that the only way to provide access to the general curriculum was to adopt a universal design framework. In CAST, I had just recently joined CAST as an affiliate. I was the first, actually, just pointed out, I was the first senior research scientist at CAST. It was just a great privilege to be be in that very rich, stimulating, propitious environment. And at right around 1999, the federal government just put out an application for somebody to figure out how to provide the nation with guidance on accessing the general curriculum. And we were positioned right at CAST, right at that time, to bring together some really outstanding partners like the Harvard Children's Initiative, Martha Minow, Counsel for Exceptional Children, a parent organization, and partners all came together. And this is really what kicked off. At that time, there were no guidelines. There were just 3 principles. And we would talk about the future of UDL and how it would really kind of get that job done, to take a one-size-fits-all curriculum and widen participation for recipients of that curriculum through implementing the Universal Design for Learning framework. A fabulous time to be there, and it was, I think it's been the richest and most consequential aspect of my career. So I guess I have to say, well, I was once 6'1". I'm now 5'10", standing before you. It might be that I'm 78 years old, so that has something to do with my shrinking stature. And if I stand up a little bit straighter than that, you might see some resemblance to my former self. So I have I guess a tan or beige suit, and a kind of a polo shirt, blue polo shirt. I'm wearing moccasins, comfortable moccasins, and I have gray hair. I'm wearing glasses, a beard. I'm glad to see that Sean's still wearing a beard. All my 2 sons wear beards. Also, so that's who I am physically, but that's just a small part of my identity. I guess for people, a totally blind person listening to me now, they would be able to form an image. But further on my identity, let me kind of get to there we go. There I am. Yeah. So, the literature is replete with references to people with disabilities as sort of represented as super Crips, do extraordinary things. And some of us with disabilities hate these super Crips because we don't believe that they really did what they said they did. And we also think that we're being held to just an unachievable standard. The other representation might be that we're Tiny Tims. You know, we are people that are pitiful and need to be cared for and protected. And so, you know, most of us growing up with disabilities, we really struggle with those tensions. So where I am, I'm just trying to. I'm going through life finding my way to really be a better person. You know, I'm not. I don't know if you know "Five for Fighting." You know, anybody know that song? All right. Well, kind of, it's a song. If you listen, beautiful lyrics and melody, and it can make you cry. You know, "Five for Fighting" did a number of those songs that can provoke your emotional intelligence. So I'm a big fan of self-determination theory, and I'm really a big fan of Ryan and Deasy's research in self-determination. And I think no matter what your age is, maybe say from age 3 up until you leave this earth, you really are in pursuit of these three basic needs. You know, the need to be competent, the need to be to have agency, or to be autonomous, right? Autonomous. So I've thrown up some synonyms for these things, or elaboration of these things. And the third one is to be socially connected, or to have feelings of belonging. And that certainly is true of people with disabilities. Without disabilities, it's true of all. It's a sort of it's human nature. So here's where my beginning was. What's involved in my identity. I'm going to kind of proceed to tell you a story that presumably will inspire you. More practical terms, I think it will tell you that how far we have really come in education, and in special education, and in technological innovation. I stand before you, and I believe super firmly that there's never been a better time to be a blind person, or to be a person with a disability. And so I think my story not only parallels the evolution of educational provisions for people with disabilities, but it also parallels the emergence of technological solutions that have moved us into autonomy, competence, and social connectedness. So here, I was born with corneal dystrophy. It's a genetically determined. It's a random or weird gene. It's very, very rare. Initially in Boston, the famous Boston Eye and Ear Hospital, they just diagnosed it as congenital infantile glaucoma, and they gave me an operation that permanently damaged my left eye, and they were about to do my right eye to relieve the pressure, and a well-known physician interceded, and I was saved from that. But I grew up with corneal dystrophy that progressed as the years went by. So initially, the Snellen chart is up there. So no, Snellen chart was back here, right? So the Snellen chart would be, I could see that big letter E today, you know, at about 6 feet away. And you would see that big letter E at 200 feet away if you had typical vision. So I grew up initially with sort of closer to totally blind than to partially, than to legally blind. So along with corneal dystrophy, this inherited thing happens where it's in the epithelium of the, the endothelium layer of the cornea, and it also affects sensory neural hearing, the cochlea. So in my 20s, I started developing hearing loss, and by the time I was in my 40s, 50s, I guess it was even later. It was about 15 years ago. It was one thing to be working with my students and have trouble seeing them or not being able to see them. And then about 15 years ago, I really couldn't hear them. So my classes were like doing a radio show. just a one person in the front of the room kind of deal. Just in case I don't get to this, a miraculous experience for me was COVID forcing us all out onto teaching over Zoom, where I am more comfortable in Zoom than I am in the room. So just it's kind of an aside, but Zoom for me is really augmented reality. You know, it really is reality increased, reality on steroids. You know, I see everybody in the room. I see my own slides. So, you know, when teaching, I want to see my own slides and talk to the students. I stand in front of the slides and the students can't see the slides because my big head is in the way. It's like my father used to say to me, a little kid watching TV, he would say, you know, you make a better door than a window. So on Zoom, I was no longer a door. You know, the window was clear to my students and the window was clear to me. I'm looking at my 28-inch monitor right in front of me, adjustable height for the monitor for my chair, Zoom, enormous Zoom potential levels of magnification, something that couldn't happen in the real world, you know. And it's the same thing with my hearing. I can't hear my students in the room, especially when they engage in conversations. But on Zoom, in Zoom rooms, I have full control of the sound. You know, if I have to instruct them on how to use the microphone, but that's almost true of everybody, by the way. Have you noticed? You know, people are very concerned about how they look on camera. You know, they can put these all these little visual changes that you can make to make yourself look younger or whatever, but not too much attention to how their sound is coming across. So if you have any kind of hearing impairment, the sound has a tremendous impact on the quality of your presentation. So just saying that alone, one of my doc students, Scott Lipinski, he and I developed all our courses in Canvas in a completely flipped mode. Our view was that we would be able to offer our courses in any format because we developed all digital content, digital activities. We could do it in the room. We could do it synchronously. We could do it asynchronously from great distances. COVID hit, the whole university shut down for a week. Well, my colleagues learned how to use Zoom. And I didn't give my students the week off. We just powered through it all. And, you know, so today, a lot of folks want to come back to the pre-pandemic day, the good old days, or the way how things were. But you'll notice that it's not happening. It won't happen. Life has really been transformed. We've made that shift into the digital world, and hopefully most of us are taking what we learned and what kind of benefits and widens access for everybody from the pandemic shutdown, and taking that and also returning to things that had more human contact and more rich engagement, social engagement, and all of this makes a better experience if we just continue to learn how to do that. So. So my early experience, I was in a substantially separate classroom, the sight-saving class. And sight-saving concept comes from England here. There was a school in London called the Myope School. And I had a sign above the door that said, "Neither reading nor writing shall enter here." Sound like a school to you? Neither reading nor writing shall enter here. Because the belief was if you were nearsighted, and had myopia, high myopia, you were at risk for retinal detachment. So really had to preserve sight. So classrooms began, you know, in around 1900 for the partially sighted, for limited kids with limited vision, all these different things. So it's like sight conservation classes or sight saving classes in my case. So there were no legal provisions for kids that learn differently. So the comment yesterday from our keynote that you know I really was my sort of how does she put it? It was brilliant. It was it's the idea of being oh, it gets to where you're excluded. You know, you're overly excluded, and that's the more than being just minoritized or something like that. Yeah. It's you know, as I go through my days and I encounter barriers in any kind of pursuit, any kind of barriers that I encounter, and I say step back and I say, oh, is this outrageous indifference or is it benign neglect? You know, so there's a certain intentionality to outrageously, you know, really, and so that's what I was kind of getting from that message, to be, you know, overly excluded. There's a certain intentionality in that. So you just, if you spend 6 years in a special class with other kids that were not similar to you, because, you know, there's no two alike. So everybody's on a different level. And what you learn in that environment is that you don't belong outside. So you see other kids doing things, coming and going to school with their mates and all that stuff, but you're in there with those other kids, and you're not really participating in the curriculum at all. And you don't get anywhere near the amount of the curriculum, because how does one teacher work with 20 kids on 6 different grade levels with special needs? How do they access the general curriculum and also develop the skills? So the skills that we developed was to read large print, and that's sort of what shows here. And then everything in the room would be enlarged, and the kids were discouraged from looking close to anything. Well, if I didn't look close, I didn't see anything. So, and you also were encouraged to read on a very limited basis, and take eye rests and so forth. So by the time I got to 7th grade, the special class resided in the basement of a junior high school building. And we couldn't mingle at all with the junior high school kids, so we came to school after they did, and we left before them. And we had the only time we had any integration was during ceremonies, like around holidays, and we had a sort of school-wide assembly. And so all the kids from the sight-saving class would be paraded up on the stage, and we'd sing "Jolly Old St. Nicholas." And really, you really had to be there to appreciate it, because, you know, we never went up on the stage, so we couldn't see where we were going. So on the stage, the way to the stage was really dark, and we would stumble. You'd hear all of us stumbling up the stairs and being assisted out to the edge of the stage where we wouldn't fall over into where the orchestra would be. And so it was really a display of our ineptitude, and that really formed my view of what it means to be a child with a disability. That you're different in a negative way, that you don't belong, and boy, if you ever get out of this thing, you better make sure nobody finds out you have a disability. Am I coming across? Is that, you get that sense? So it's just a very negative view of who you are becoming as a person. That what you're going to be better somehow work around or compensate for what makes you different in a negative way. It was very destructive for me, because when I got into middle school, it was much, I could choose to be a behavior problem instead of being that goofy kid that can't read. So I did everything I could to distract from my visual impairment. So to kind of fast forward this thing, I had really made it through middle school and first year of high school by learning in the summer. I would fail courses, and then I would sort of make up parts of the courses, and I just barely made it through with summer activities. And then finally I hit the wall. Really couldn't keep up. So I failed my 11th year, my 11th grade, and I had to repeat the 11th grade. Well, I had a job at the local car wash, and I had a plan. I was in love with a girl down the street. Well, before I go on with the girl down the street, I should tell you that my lovely wife, Lynn Halton, is here with me today. And I think a number of you have. She's listening. So I was in love with the girl down the street, Connie, and two things happened. She moved far, far away, and I got fired from the car wash. My plan was to marry Connie, and I was going to work in the car wash because I was at least making some money at the car wash. But one morning, the owner put everybody on the job and just turned his back on me. He walked away, and I said, "Well, what about me?" He said, "You know, kid, you're no good to me. You just can't see those hubcaps." And so that was where I kind of came home and had one of those conversations in the kitchen with my mother and said, you know, this is, I think I got to start paying attention to what people are telling me to, you know, try to become the best I can be with my disabilities and find ways to succeed. So I repeated my 11th grade year at Medford High, large sort of suburban high school, and it still really wasn't good enough. So I sort of moved on to I was in Medford High in this is where I was in my 11th grade, second 11th grade year. So 3/4 of the way through that, I was barely passing, and I was doing my best. Now there were no learning supports at that time. I would have readers. I would have I had to tough it out. Oh, this is an important thing to see. Yeah, this is actually a pair of this is a low vision aid from England. There were very few people that could use this degree of magnification, but it was 15 power glass, triple layers of glass, and it would allow me to read print, but it was just god awful. And I refused to use it in class because it made me look like such a goofball. Drew negative attention to me, and it was part of that whole thing. So where I had to use it, I would stay in the back of the room and stack up books so nobody would see me. Of course, everybody saw me. And then when kids would pick on me, they really weren't picking on me. They were just curious. You know, they would say, "What's wrong with your eye? Why does your eye move? Why do your eyes move around? Or why do you look so close to things?" They were curious, but I never had those kinds of conversations when I was 6 or 7 years old. I didn't grow up integrated with other kids, so that they learned 6 and 7-year-old kids. They're learning and paying attention to what each other are doing, and very, very rich social experience. So no, I was trying to run away from anything connected with my disability. So I was offended by anybody expressing curiosity. I thought they were making fun of me or attacking me. Of course, some were, but not everybody was. So there were all of those missed opportunities. So where I went by the end of my junior year was to Perkins School for the Blind. okay, you know, where that place where Helen Keller graduated from. Perkins was a residential blind school, and I'm not a proponent of segregated schools for people with disabilities, regardless of the severity of the disability. But at the time, Perkins was just perfect for me because I was really struggling with identity, no self-esteem connected with academics. And at Perkins, there were kids that could do tons of, many of them had less vision than I, and they grew up in Perkins. They had sports, they had arts and crafts, they played an instrument, they were all singers, they were strong in academics and just ready to take on the world, but really socially quite deprived. And I was, it was a fabulous experience for me because I was motivated and I felt safe from ridicule, and I was attractive to people at Perkins because I was from the outside and I had all these stories about my mischievousness, you know, as a teenager and so forth. All those behavior problems that were intended by me to detract from discovering my visual impairment made for interesting stories with my friends at Perkins. So Perkins barely got me into college. And I want to say that I went to American International College. It was a small school at the time. And the key takeaways from AIC was that I had professors that spent one-on-one time with me, teaching me to write and teaching me to think. And I had a professor my sophomore year that really saw potential. It was my ed psych professor. And you know, this was back in 1965, 66, okay? And I still take after this guy, Richard Sprinthal. You know, he was my model, my mentor. And I even tell some of the same jokes with my own students. But it's like to really feel that sort of self-efficacy, that wow, I can really do this stuff, you know, and I'm accepted by people that I respect, and this is kind of working out for me. And I also just another. This is probably going to go way beyond the time I have allotted, but I'm on a rant. Okay, I hope you appreciate it. But my roommate, Louis Orenstein, our approach to study, how did I look? I couldn't read the books except with my magnifier or books that I could get on tape and try to catch up on. So my best way of learning was participate in lectures and discussions in classes. But my roommate, Louis, he had an incredible set of study skills. And I was very good at restating things and comprehending things and give Louis the big picture. Okay, Louis, this is really what this means. And so Louis would take the textbook and he turned the textbook into a long series of mnemonics. He memorized the whole book. And then I would interpret things for him, and then he and I would practice the mnemonics. So on all the exams that followed that, Louis always got the highest grade in the class, and I kind of came in somewhere, you know, in the low 90s, okay? Louis graduated valedictorian from AIC. And we both, we were planning, well, we'll go on to grad school together. But we went in different directions. He went into clinical psych at Cleveland. He was there during the Kent State massacre. Burgeoning social psychologist. I went on to Harvard in psychology and education, and I think I went on to Harvard because of the prep and mentoring I got at AIC, and Harvard taking an interest in this kind of extraordinary guy with limited background who seems to be ready for this kind of thing and make a unique contribution to the class at Harvard. But it was wonderful for me. But what I'm trying to say is I really could do very little independently, okay? Very little. See, that's an old talking, this is an old talking book machine. Have you ever heard stories about talking book machines? Or books would be put on flexible discs, and they would be reused. They would come from recordings, what was called then recordings for the blind. And hopefully that they were in a library and you could get them on time. When you did, then you would listen to these things, but they would snap and crackle. And you had to put a weight on the tone arm to keep them from skipping around. And then it was impossible to take any notes or do anything with the content you were picking up because you couldn't start it or stop it. You'd lose your place. Just horrific. And the same would be said for the Sony TC-105, the reel-to-reel tape recorders. You move the talking book to the tape recorders. There was no foot switch control on this. There was no way, really. So learning for the blind was kind of passive. You know, you would just consume if it was available to you, you could consume it. But being able to produce or interact with the learning medium was a tremendous challenge. So went on to Harvard and then to Teachers College, Columbia University. There's my life has been long and I can't fill in all the gaps, but there were some really formative experiences I had between my master's and doctorate, where I got to work with students that grew up at Fernald State Institution who were blind and intellectually impaired, and they had never had an experience outside of the institution. And there was some money available in the early 70s, so I got in on the ground level of a project to demonstrate that these kids could be communitized, that they could be habilitated in the community. And that just turned me on to instructional design. And and so I went off to Columbia to Teachers College to get my doctorate in special ed. That's kind of where basically where my training comes from. So here I am, I just sort of get to Boston College, and this is, the problem is still getting materials. It's like 1979, I'm at Boston College. I brought some years on my tenure from Dominican College, where I was a couple of years earlier. So I had, in 4 years, I had to get tenure. And so doing library work was just, how do you do that? You know, you need assistance to go through and select articles to read. Then you need to decide, are you going to have those read to you, or are you going to tough it out with those kinds of glasses? See those glasses there on the bottom left? Are you going to try it with a closed circuit television set like here, an analog system? Are you going to send it out to have it recorded? And then when you get your material, your source material, you have to transform it. You have to move. You have to gather material, extract material from your source, and repurpose it into a creative product, or into a literature review, or into a research report. Okay, so there's a whole workflow that you never had the tools for, unless you were a super crip, you know, the guy with the red cape. Okay, and they do exist. You know, they're super blind people. How does he do it? Well, nobody really knows, but he does it. So I kind of toughed it out through those years, and then the digital age hit, and whoops, I think yeah, I guess I'm kind of ready to kind of get to the digital age. Oh, here, this slide might help. This is sort of my Betsy Dalton days, when what I was doing is working with Microsoft and Apple's. I was an early adopter of Apple computers for the Macintosh. And BC was all a Macintosh Apple University. And but the 9-inch screen was impossible to see. And the user interface, the GUI, the graphical user interface, was not really a keyboard accessible. So you really had to have vision. So what we did is we drilled the back of a Mac Plus and put a huge 21-inch electro voice monitor onto it. And then Berkeley Systems Design from California came out with this magnification called Close View. And that changed the world. So here I was, I got my old Macintosh at home. The first time I got it home, Lynn didn't see me for the entire weekend. For the first time, I had independent access, to information. So where did the source come from? So I could interact with a computer and work independently. I could write, I could read. Now, where's the source come from? Well, along comes the federal government posting all this stuff on the internet. And here's all my source documents. So, where are we today? And this is all the stuff that's going on. Okay, this is kind of my world. We're in a world. This might appreciate this. So I was in Dublin with Sean when we did the presentation at AHEAD when the book came out, and the library at I think it's a Kelb library, and it's at Trinity College. Where Bishop George Berkeley made famous. Okay, famous British empiricist. So what's in this Kelb library? Well, as far as you can see into the air, it's books and ladders that go back and forth. And I could see, wow, you had to kind of come to this place. You had to be wealthy to get here. And then when you got here, you had to be able to read that stuff after somebody located it and got it down way on the stacks. Then you had to be able to extract information from it. It's so sacred, you could never take it out or anything like that. And it's so much security, you could never rip pages out of it or anything like that. So there it is. And all through my experience, it wasn't Kelb Library, but it was paper. It was working with paper that I couldn't see and work with and make use of. And then right next to that picture of the Kelb Library, I have a picture of a jump drive. So implying that everything in that library could be just on, a jump drive. You can take the collection of Kelb Library with you wherever you go. But it's still fixed media. Well, now it streams. Okay, so here we are in this age where with just my little Android tablet, I could be at a meeting that uses Google Docs. Everything is hot linked to hyperlinked rather to other sources of media, whether they're videos or whether they're tables, graphs. There's there are spaces to respond, to edit, depending on the level of it. There's screen magnification on my little phablet there. It's portable. Wherever the source is, it's interoperable. You can be using a Mac, a PC, Android. It's a completely different world. My teaching is all developed on Canvas. Years ago, I said, take my course, and it's a course that's designed for the it's designed. I'm blowing this. I used to, how you used to talk about accommodations and poor people with disabilities. We got to make accommodations for poor people with disabilities. I would say, well, my course is intended to provide accommodations for the technologically challenged. We'll make compensation. We'll let you use paper, but you don't have to. That's the idea. So that's that sort of different world, and try to come back to I'm trying to say, take apart this idea of potential. What is potential about? So we go back in your lifetime, and certainly in my lifetime, we're still victimized by psychometrists and by Albert Binet, by Lewis Terman, by people that said, we can really measure people's potential by using IQ tests or or general aptitude tests. We can measure this. And what is it? It's really all reducible down to one thing, the general factor, factor G. And you either have a lot of this stuff or you don't have much of it. If you have a lot of it, you should get a lot of opportunity and a lot of curriculum. If you don't have much of this stuff, then you really should be leveled down to what we think your potential would indicate you can manage. So the way that we stream and place and track learners through the whole system is based on this sort of 1910 idea of intelligence and the general factor and tests that are really validated against the general factor. And that's been, no matter how we conceive of potential, that's been how it's estimates of potential have been used to make policy, make important life consequential decisions. So where we really want to, where I think we really, the way I'm trying to look at potential is to say that if we turned our attention away from estimating, measuring potential, and just the people we like or we think are smart, or they impress us with the way they talk, whatever sets our biases, we turn away from that and we look to the learning environment. And today the learning environment extends beyond the classroom. Okay? The learning environment is really everywhere where people gather to have a shared purpose. Okay, so if we turn our attention to the environment and the affordances that exist, they get unnoticed, and the affordances that could be invented or created, or affordances that are emerging, we just have to pay close attention to their source. And what we do is we just see opportunity exploding, and that's what the UDL framework does. It says nothing about capacity, it says nothing about potential, but it creates opportunity for potential to emerge. And this is sort of what I'll just kind of end with this, and then hopefully we'll have some questions. But this is, to me, this is kind of how I sum up universal design. What is it? You can see I have to have multiple approaches to my presentations. If we were on Zoom, that wouldn't be the case. Yeah, multiple means of representation. Thank you, Betsy. That's exactly what this is. So universal design for learning, it's a conceptual framework for a paradigm shift. So where that paradigm shift comes from, the structure of scientific investigation, that it comes from Thomas Kuhn, the idea that science, real science, is based on one unified theory, and the social sciences are all a big mess. So in real science, unified, paradigms replace one another over time. A paradigm shift would be there's a whole new idea, a way of looking at things, a way of doing research and working, and it's resisted, just like UDL is resisted by special education and by general ed. That's why I wanted UDL leadership, because there isn't competencies in general ed and competencies in special ed that make for educating all children. That's all new. So what you guys are moving into is really new, educating everybody, widening participation. Okay, so way back, Ann Meyer, you know, Rosenmeyer, the Bible was Rosenmeyer's on UDL, was published in 2002. So around 2002, Ann Meyer said at one of our meetings, UDL is a paradigm shift. And I said, well, maybe, but we can't say that. Because you don't declare that you've done this paradigm shift. Other people have to say, you've done a paradigm shift. So for the last 20 years or so, you know, people have been saying, oh, I think that's a paradigm. Well, here today, I'm telling you, it really is a paradigm shift. You know, it is taking us out of that B'nai Terman mentality of sorting people and treating them like material in a factory. Okay. So it's a theoretical framework for predicting wider participation and equitable outcomes. I got to say that it warmed my heart to hear Linda Planten you in Sweden, you know, talking about widened participation with what they're trying to do there. And I thought, well, you know, that's a consequence of UDL implementation that people can really resonate to. That's if UDL does nothing, it widens participation. So the slides that you see about people standing on boxes, right, and you're looking over the fence, or you're looking through the fence, or your boxes, you all got the same size box, but you should have different size boxes to meet your needs. Well, they're still not on the playing field, though, are they? Okay, did you notice that? They're still observers. They're still in the background, and they're still like lurkers, as people with disabilities. So they're excluded, but not so oppressively excluded. And so what I'm saying is that I'm on the playing field now, okay, that I can do my scholarship without any help. And when I was a kid, I couldn't do anything. The whole world of information was unavailable to me. I would ask people to read the Boy Scout manual to me, or just anything. Read the dates on pennies so I could participate in collecting pennies and organizing pennies. So it's like going from nowhere. You know, one of the Judy Mackenzie's students in South Africa had a student that described his experience as, it's like being a stranger in a strange land. I love that, because it's like when you're really suffering with your identity as a disabled person, you are a stranger. You know, you think you don't know yourself, and you get the sense that people don't really know you, so you're just a stranger. And the strange land is that there's so little you can do in this land that was never designed or benefited to benefit you. It was all, you know, developed, just the evolution of how the built environment gets created. It really didn't have you with your disabilities in mind. So, stranger in a strange land, I'm no longer such a stranger, and the land is a lot more navigable for me. So I hope that you appreciate that life is much better because of all these innovations, and that there's a lot of harm served when people are excluded and marginalized. And it's tough to get people together, working together, but it's something that we have to persist at. So thank you all very much. Appreciate you. I love and admire you.
I don't think I've ever heard such a round of applause. What a great testimony. And
it's late and they're exhausted, and so am I.
Right. Well, let's get some tea and coffee into you before you go. I'm sure that lots of people are going to want to engage with you. Maybe a few minutes for some questions, comments. No, it's just it is a paradigm shift. Sorry, I'm getting sort of quite emotional here.
Yeah. Well, I told Ann Meyer, we can't say that. That's
Dawn.
So Richard, you called yourself feeling like a stranger in a strange land. What do you feel like now?
I'm among good friends that are coming to know my work and not know me just historically, but also interact with me, and I feel completely accepted. I just I'm part of a community that just warms my heart, and like Betsy wants me to keep going with this leg of the journey, you know, with INCLUDE and with the dear friends that I've made and continue to make. I do plan to spend much more time with family. My wife Lynn and my 3 grown children and my 6 grandchildren. Most of them will be here Saturday in Paris. We'll be staying on. Lynn's father landed at Normandy, and she's always wanted to trace his footsteps. So we're going to Normandy from Paris and around that area, and then we're heading back to Boston on the 5th, after your election. And I've yet to get the dirt on last night's Trump debate. The vibes I'm getting, it's not good. Any questions? Yeah.
Or a comment, perhaps. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Richard. I don't really have a question for you, but I just want to say something that I know I have said before, but I want to say it again, that you have been a tremendous, very inspiring for me for many years. And we met the first time back in 2016. And I especially recognize or remember that meeting because we were sitting at your office and you were talking about your vision about creating a network for universal design for learning. And then a couple of years later, back in 2019, I was in the airport in Amsterdam, and I had just visited a conference, and my plane was delayed and later cancelled, and everything was chaos. And then I saw an email from you that you had created this network with a colleague of yours named Sean Bracken that I didn't know at that time, but I do know very well now. And you invited me to this network, and I remember how very pleased I felt to be within this network, and I have done it ever since. But because you said it so very well earlier, this is really a welcoming community, and it is a community with a high sense of belonging. And I will always and forever be grateful for you and all your support. You have supported me within the years, but I know that we will keep on having connection with each other, even if you're not in Boston College anymore. But I suppose you will be here in INCLUDE anyway, so we will get together, and I hope.
Number of senior folks, we get our greatest, it's really our future, our legacy is to see what people are doing. And then when they acknowledge the inspiration or the mentoring or the support, it's what it's all about, is back to that social, it's back to self-determination theory, social relatedness. And more, we've got to work that into our pedagogy. I think, Linda, that's kind of your passion is communities within classrooms. And then around here, the passion for INCLUDE is a globalized virtual community of practice. And there's a lot of theory behind it, and be wonderful for people to feed into that theory and validate it through participation in the community of practice. INCLUDE.
Thank you so much. And do we have perhaps one last question or comment from any of the audience? Or yeah, Setu.
Hello, Richard. Thank you. Thank you for that amazing, inspiring keynote speech. Or, I come from a land of storytellers, the land of India. Yeah, so story is such an amazing thing. And your journey, your story was beautiful, which I'll hold it close. Remembering every time I create something and remembering to see, remembering everybody in that to make belong, make include, and consciously, intentionally look out for those barriers which we might be creating it. So I never had this privilege of hearing somebody's life story in such a depth, and I am very grateful for you to share that story among us. Thank you.
Very, very kind of you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet all of you, work with all of you, and I wish I could do what Sean does so well, to just acknowledge people by name. I said, oh, I wouldn't take that chance, Sean. I would be like, I certainly leave somebody out and offend somebody, but I've met so many lovely people and re-met and reacquainted with people from the past. This is a wonderful experience. So we'll do the next one on Mars. Thank you. Thank you.
So Richard, this is just a small token of our appreciation for a little gift from Worcester for you to take back for when summer is over, as in tomorrow on your way home. All right. So thanks to all of our wonderful guests from overseas and from here, more locally, and especially from those from the tropical areas, and from Morocco for bringing the sunshine to us for the week of summer that we've had, and from India, of course, as well. But real thanks, as I said, to those people who have assisted in planning and in making this happen. So Susie, just a very small token of appreciation to yourself as well. Thank you. And it says in there, it couldn't have happened without you, and really it couldn't. Especially I think for the overseas people. It's just, as I said, it's just a wee small token of appreciation. Thank you. And who else do we have here? For Tracy Galvin. Yeah, wonderful Tracy. And you will be on the associate board. I'm sort of expecting that editorial board representation there. Let's see. Who else do we have? And for Mustafa, thank you so much. On behalf of kind of all colleagues from ICEQ, thank you so much. And I think we have, for Betsy Dalton as well, for being that stalwart. Here, listen to that. Yeah, it's just that level of appreciation for everything. Thank you. And I think finally, just a little token of appreciation for, I'm going to refer to these two people as co-chairs. And the co-chair is Emma Richardson. What was that? Duracell bunny? Duracell bunny? Just incredible. So if you wouldn't mind, yeah, come in and the third. And for Michelle. And Kate Howan. Thank you so much. And Setu. So I thank you all. Oh, thank you.
He's done. I'm done. However, we just wanted to say we've had 4 sort of real legends in amongst the conference. You kind of guess, you know, our ambassadors have been here, but we've had 4 amazing student volunteers. So don't think that you're going to sit down. You need to come up. Come on. Helen, come on. Helen, come on. What can we say about these? Oh, Alice, please don't fall over now. What can we say about these 4 amazing, I don't want to say young people, but young adults that are just have been beacons in our conference, really, and they've actually made it so relatable. Do you agree? They've helped us understand so many things. Never stop, I'm crying, never stop asking questions like you guys have done. Christian, some of those questions, we've needed those questions, and you've been brave enough to ask them. So thank you. And I said, and Harriet's got this ability just to show compassion and the humility that she does that with. Alice, your humor has just kept us going. So many one-liners. And Helen, you're just sort of a presence, and you're amongst them, and you're just caring and compassionate. So thank you for the hours you've given up for us, for your willingness to serve us. And we just want to say thank you. Alice, there's a card here. Harriet. Yeah. No one-liners. I have put an audio description there, but the thing is that you have to read it. Christopher.
Thank you so much, and thanks to all of you. And I just as I was looking down the back of the room, I saw Calvin, who's just been such a great presence over the past couple of days in terms of all the IT. So to the IT team, and I think that IT support is very much resonates in relation to what Richard was speaking to, the affordances of technology, the futures that it offers, the potential that it offers in terms of mutual understanding, reaching out across borders, and creating that that sense of learning and wonder and potential into the future. So I think it resonates really well. And I think last but not least as well is our other ambassadors, our student ambassadors who've been here. And sorry.
Marks and Spencer Sweet, and you've enjoyed them, haven't you? So
great stuff. And what I'm going to do now is invite you to share in our last sort of maybe communal experience, and that is one that Michelle was very, very keen to for everybody to experience, and that is high tea, a very English experience. And that is, what are we having with our high tea? High tea? Cream tea. So we have cream tea. So we have scones, I think, with cream and tea. So lots of cream, apparently, or clotted cream. Clotted cream. So I can see some people are sort of enamored with that idea, some perhaps less so, but at least it's a cultural experience. And And again, it's an opportunity for us to have an opportunity to interact with one another before we go our separate ways, and hopefully take some really great memories from here. Thanks again to all of the colleagues from traveling from Dallas, Texas, and all sorts of various places. And whilst you're having your clotted cream and scones and tea, cream tea, just cream tea, apparently. What would I know about this stuff? It goes along with cucumber sandwiches and cricket. I would encourage you to engage still with your ideas and your insights, and just to share those with us about your experiences over the past 3 days. And with that, it is my pleasure to pass the baton to the next ICEQ conference, wherever that might be and whenever it might be. And we'll leave that to C. Mustafa and his team at ICEQ, who will be, and I'll keep you in touch with where and when that will happen. So thank you all, colleagues, for your participation, and friends.